Hey there, my name's Alan Monroe, and today I'm going to teach you how to create a cartoon ghost within 3D Studio Max. I'm going to discuss all methods in creating this short video clip from scratch to end. We will begin by modeling and texturing our ghost character, utilizing predefined UV layouts created by primitive objects. Once we have created the shader for our model, we will fine-tune the model using a few modifiers available to us. From here, we will continue using the modifiers to set up animation controls for our model. This tutorial will only briefly cover the animation, as this tutorial is more directed towards how to utilize 3D Studio Max modifier tools to create models, simulate cloth, and rig controls. However, if you are interested in learning more about the animation process, please check out our other tutorials. Once our model is animated, we'll begin rigging the string for the model. Our next step in the process is to render out the animation and complete the final shot within Adobe After Effects. Okay, so we have a lot to cover right now, so let's get started. Okay, so here we are in 3D Studio Max, and to begin modeling, I wanted to take advantage of the way UVs were laid out on objects from the beginning that they're created. And the one that works best for us is a sphere. So if I create this, and the reason why this one works best is because the UVs run north to south on these poles, and in order to create that cartoon effect, more like cloth, has some depth to it, these vertical lines, we can automatically use the UVs laid out and not have to unwrap this model. Alright, so back in 3D Studio Max, I'm just going to set my segments 18. I'm going to convert this to an editable poly, and I'm just going to cut it in half, or a little more than half since there's not a division there in the middle. And I'm going to select my border, and I'm going to hold shift and drag this down. Alright, so now we got the shape of the ghost, and we'll do some modifications to it here in a moment, but to get started we're going to go ahead and texture this model. Alright, so I'm going to open up our material editor. Make sure you guys can see this. Alright, and we're going to just drag and drop this default shader onto it, and we need to start making some maps. So we're going to go into the diffuse channel, and we're going to load up a bitmap. Actually no, we're going to make a gradient ramp. Okay, and we're going to just click here, show shaded material in viewport, so we can see what our results are. Alright, so if I rotate around, you can see it's a little dark on this side, and it gets white on this side. So what we need to do is get some vertical lines going, but we don't want a gradient. So the first thing we're going to do is set our interpolation from linear to solid. Alright, and we're going to set up our colors. So we're going to want a little bit off-white and something a little darker gray than this. Okay, so now we'll just move these along, and if you click anywhere in the color, you can make a new swatch. And since I clicked in the white, I made a white one. So it's always going left to right here. So if I want to make a gray one after the white, just click in the gray area and drag it out. And you can kind of see the effect that we're getting on this side. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a few of these. Alright, so from this angle, this will probably be our ghost. So just because it has the most variation, some of these I'm not too happy. So we'll just shoot it from this angle, in the y-axis. Alright, so from here we got to go ahead and make the next part, which is right when these get to the bend, we need them to taper off, because we don't want all these drapes to go into this little center here. So we're going to go ahead and actually drop on another material so that we can see the results of this. And what we're actually creating is the opacity map. So we're actually going to go ahead and create another gradient ramp, and we'll put it into the diffuse channel. Alright, and we are going to be plugging into the opacity of another material, but for now we just want to be able to visualize what we're creating. So we'll turn on show shaded material in viewport and from the top, and what we want to see is actually top to bottom. Right now it's going horizontal. So in order to get that set up so that it's black on top, white on the bottom, we'll set our U to 90 degrees. Alright. So in my viewport, it's a little difficult to see how much white is actually being visible. So what we need to do is try and clamp this up a little bit, but even still it's going to be hard. So the best way for us to see this is actually to combine our final material and see what our renders look like. Alright, so to get this started, I'm going to go ahead and grab a blank material, and I'm going to go to standard and grab a composite. I'm going to keep the old material, and this color here is actually what's underneath the vertical stripes when we get to the top where it's invisible. So what we need now is our maps. So we're going to drag our material with the stripes onto the map 1 channel, and we're going to make an instance so that we can alter it if need be. I'm going to go ahead and name this Ghost lines, and then we'll name the material ghost, or we'll call it cloth. Alright, so but we also need to get an opacity, but we can't drag a shader into the opacity, and that's not really what we wanted anyways. We actually just wanted the material or the map that was created for the gradient ramp. So what we can do is click on opacity, and from here, instead of choosing one of the maps in the standard, we'll actually go down to scene materials, find our diffuse color gradient ramp. So if I change the name of this, right now it's in map number 2, I can name this here in a moment, you'll see the results. So we'll just grab this one, hit OK, make it an instance so that we can always alter it in this material if need be. And this is where it says map number 2. So I could have called this opacity. Right? So when we go to our composite shader, go into cloth and click on the map channel, you'll see that it's actually an instance of that. Okay, so from here we can drag and drop this onto the model, show materials in viewport, and we can position this. Actually, my hotkey's changed. Alright, so you can see a bit of the gradient up here, but we're going to want to fall this off a little bit further. So what we'll do is just go back into our ramp here, and we're going to pull the white further to the left or to the right and bring in more of that black. So we may have to create another black node, just drag this out. And every now and then we get a little bit of movement, we'll just pull that down. So it looks like we're getting something closer to what we're looking for, maybe a little bit more and less of a fall off. See how that looks? We're a little close here. Alright, so that's looking good. Alright, so there you have it. That's going to be the shader here for the ghost. We'll move up to the parent. We'll name this ghost shader. Okay, so now that the shader is done, we're going to go ahead and start altering the geometry to get the look of the ghost. So just minimize this here a bit. Alright, select vertices or edge mode, and we're going to add in a few more loops here just so that we have some more topology to work with. Hit connect, add 2 segments in, hit OK, click on editable poly, and from here to start deforming this model, we're going to throw on an FFD deformer, 4x4 points. So once that's on there, select control points, and then start shifting these around until you get a random look. Okay, so that will be our ghost. Alright, so next is to start bringing up a few pieces so that we can start getting that animation look. So the first pass that I did is I would need to get this bottom row of vertices waving to make it simulate like cloth. So what I did is I added an edit poly modifier, selected by vertices, and I selected that bottom row. And with that bottom row, the red means fully selected, but I want to have a bit of a effect on a little bit up here, just kind of give that fall off look for the cloth and make it look more realistic. So I use soft selection, turn that on, and I just adjusted this a bit so I saw that there was influencing at least all the vertices in the next row up. Okay, so to get the look that we're looking for is you got to make sure that the vertices are still selected before you add the next modifier. Whatever modifier you add from this point on to whatever's selected, that's what that modifier above will affect. So we want only these vertices to be affected by the noise modifier. So with these vertices still selected, we'll click on modifiers and go down to noise. Let's see if I find it here. And there's noise. Alright, so from here we can start playing around with the parameters of the noise and start kind of playing around with the animation, and once we get that just right, then we'll set the animation offset to go a few phases, and that will be the animation for the bottom. So we're going to lower the scale, and at the same time we'll start increasing X strength, Y strength, and Z strength. Okay, so we can start playing with the phase to see what this is looking like. Oh, I don't have animate noise turned on. So we'll give it a few phases and then see how it looks. So as you can see, that's a bit much. We can hit play to see this. I'll set my frame rate up to 24 and hit play. Okay, so at this point you can really decide whether or not you want to have more of a soft selection, or I think I want to get mine a little bit further up, a little bit more influence. You hit play while you're doing this. Okay. I think I want it affecting that much up there, but uh, our noise in animation is a bit too much. And also we're seeing an ease in and ease out on the noise. So to fix that, before you turn on the animate noise or the noise modifier, you could have set your interpolation default in and out to linear. But in this case, since I didn't have this set to linear, we can go into our curve editor to fix that. So with the noise selected, go into the curve editor, make this big so you guys can see. And under the modified object, noise, you can see that our interpolation is easing in and easing out. So I'm going to select those two keys, and then we'll set on our tangents to linear. Alright, so now it will look like it's just repeating over and over. We may get a pop, but it's not easing in and out. Okay, so at this point, with the noise modifier selected, we can increase the scale to kind of get this effect looking a little bit closer to what we want. Alright, so I kind of like the rips and tears we're kind of getting down here, but the movements may be a bit much. So we'll go down to the frequency and bring this down. Maybe a little higher. Play with the scale a little bit. Okay, so you can play with that to your heart's content until you get the desired look that you're going for. Okay, so now at this point we need to go ahead and clear our selection. But we can't clear it under the editable poly, because here's what will happen. Just click here once, and you'll see that everything is now affected by the noise modifier. So what we need to do is click on vertex again and then click on noise. But to reset our stack, we just add another edit poly modifier. Right here. Okay, so we can do whatever we want at this point, and it's not going to make any difference at the bottom. It's still affected just those vertices down here. Right, so undo that change. And next in our stack, we need to add a bend modifier. Right, so with this one, we go ahead and just test it out. It's going forward and backwards, but we want to set the gizmo to be the top. That way we have bending from a cloth going from the top to the bottom, not in between. And because this is going to be a front and back bend, I'm going to rename this modifier from bend to forward bend. Okay, we're going to add another bend modifier. Set its direction to 90, and then test out its angle. You'll see that this is left and right, and again, it's bending in the middle, and we want it to bend at the top. So I'll just grab the gizmo and move it up top. Okay, I'll reset my angle, and I'll rename this one sideways bend. Okay, so that's pretty much going to do it for our ghost for the rig. Now we need to go ahead and add in the eyes. And to make the eyes, I use the cylinder. We'll just create a cylinder in our scene. Reset our height segments. Set our size at 18 is fine. We'll convert this to an editable poly. We'll select one of the faces at the top. We're going to invert our selection by pressing Control I. We'll delete that. And now we have the pupil. We're going to go ahead and add a black material to this object. We'll center up the pivot. And we'll put this into position now. Make sure my snap 90 degrees is on. Right in this view. Move this in position. Alright, we'll just squash that inwards, give it a bit of a cartoonish look. And we'll need another eye. And I think I have them too big. I'll just set my local mode into my scale. Just scale those down individually. Scale them sideways. Alright, at this point we'll just double check that they're in the right position. As you can see, they kind of be hanging off the ghost a little bit, so we'll just rotate those back towards the ghost. And if you want, you can even rotate them so that they follow the curvature. Alright, and we're going to link both those to the ghost so that as the ghost moves, they will move. We're also going to move the pivot point for the ghost to the top so that as it comes in, we can swing it from the top to the bottom like this, same as we did with the bend modifiers. And last but not least, we're going to add one more modifier to the ghost, and this is going to just help out the noise modifier from breaking these off to ours. So we're getting some hard edges here, so we'll just go ahead and add another mesh smooth. and we can go ahead and name the object Ghost. We'll name our eyes. At this point, we're now ready for animation, so I'm going to go ahead and create a camera in the scene. We'll just create one from this current view. We're going to go into our render setup and just make sure that we're rendering this out at HD, so 1280 by 720. In order to see the output size right inside our camera, we can go ahead and hit the hotkey Shift F. You'll see this yellow outline go around the scene. This shows what will show up in the render. And I suppose at this point we can go ahead and do a test render. Alright, there's our object. It's not lit yet, but you can see he's looking really close to what we had in the preview. Okay, so I'm going to move the ghost off to the side, set it at auto key. Over here, bend them onto the side. And we'll just look at this from two different views here. So, set up perspective view. I think we'll pull our camera back a little bit. We're just a little close. And then move him to the side. Okay, so I'm going to block out the poses for this character. He's going to come in from the side, but he's also going to drop a little bit as he comes into the shot. So he's going to swing in, come up about halfway through the shot. He's going to hover back, like settle into his pose. He's going to start to drop a little bit, and just as he comes back up to settle, the string is going to pull him off screen. Right, so here he is coming into the shot. He's come down this far. Then he's going to be facing us at this point, and maybe he'll have bent backwards, settling into the shot now. So he comes in, then we'll bring him up over. He'll be swinging back towards this way now. And this, at this point, everything's going to take much longer to happen because he's settling and blinking at the camera. Raise this up a little bit. Maybe we'll bring this over here. Bring it up. And then he's off camera on this frame. Okay, so here's the poses for our shot. I'm going to make sure this is set up for 24 frames a second and hit play. Okay, so at this point it's just a matter of just adjusting the timing. Now this tutorial is not about animation, so I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward this while I do this cleanup for this. You're going to see me opening up the curve editor, or graph editor, just show this to you. Curve editor, sorry. And what I'll be trying to do is just make sure that all these curves are nice and clean. Anytime I see kinks or extra keys that really aren't helping the smoothness of the start, I'll be getting rid of them. Okay, so I switched over to the other max file that I had where I had finished the animation just to save on time on the tutorial for me developing it. So this is the scene where I finished the animation that you saw in the preview video. So I just want to go over and just show that this is everything that I have taught you up to this far. We had the editable poly in this shape, then we made the model adjustments. We added in a vertice selector for the bottom. I just renamed it. In the other scene it's called just edit poly. Then we add in the noise modifier, which I called noise control in my scene. We set our selection, and then we add our sideways and our forward bend, and then we add in the mesh smooth for the to smooth out all the breaks that we were getting from the wind control. Alright, and here's the material. I just want to show you. Alright, and also the gradient. Alright. And so at the end, when we finished animating, I was able to get this result. Now just to go over how I did get some of this fluid effect, we have the wing control constantly moving over time. If I move this, you can see the noise modifier kind of dancing, and that's giving us that wavy effect on the bottom. For these slow, like these settles that we're getting, the cloth is bent really far at this point. So we can take a look at the sideways bend. It was bending like this. Right? Move forward. You can see it goes the other way at this point. So I just animated the bends just to kind of give that settle and follow through on the cloth. I'll show you the curve editor here for the transitions. Alright, so right now we're looking at the curve controls for the movement. So as you can see, the object comes in, he dips here. This is up and down, then he goes up, kind of curves back down a little bit, settles, and then gets taken off the screen. And up here is where you can see the jerk moving in X. So moves in, moves back, and then kind of settles for a little bit, and then you can see where the X axis rise up really quick and it's taken off shot. I also added a little bit of stretch on the object. Go down to the scale. You can see just at the very end, just to help sell the effect that he's really being pulled off screen. The last few keys, this is at normal scale right now, and then at this scale, I just scaled it up in X and Y, or Z and Y. Okay, and for the blinks, I added in 3 keyframes, one to hold at scale, another to hold at scale, and in between the two, I scaled them down really small, but not all the way, just enough to kind of show like maybe his eyelids are touching. Alright, so we'll watch that one more time. Alright, so the other thing that I did in the scene is I added in a rope hanging from the top of the character. So to do this, I'll just move the character to a pose that we like. I will just do it from the very beginning. Right, we'll move into a shot here where we can see from the front of the camera. Something like this. And we'll click at one point and move to the top. Alright, so in my perspective view you can see the line. And we're going to go ahead and just add a bit of a bend to this. But in order to see the interpolation that we're getting on the geometry, we'll go ahead and show in viewport. Up the thickness of this rope. Alright, as of right now you're not seeing any divisions really. And that's because there's no bend in it, so it's not adding any interpolation. So we'll right click on the vertex and set to Bezier. At this point, once we rotate, you'll see that we're getting a few divisions here to help with the geometry. We'll increase that a little bit so that we don't see any kind of breaks in the chord. So we're looking for interpolation, and we'll just increase that up from 6 maybe to 8. Alright, we're also going to add a Bezier down to the bottom too, so that we don't get any kinks. We'll just bend that out a little bit so it has some bend to it. Alright, so now we need to align this point to somewhere on the top of the ghost. So to do that, we're also going to need to skin it to an object that's going to constantly follow the ghost. So we're going to make a dummy object. Right? And we'll align this to the ghost, and because its pivots at the top of the ghost, this is in the ideal position already. We'll align its orientation, and then we'll make that a child of the ghost. So as we play through, you'll see that the dummy object is now following the ghost. Alright, we'll make another dummy object, and this will be the one that we animate up top just to kind of make it look like there's anticipation or someone's controlling the rope. Alright, we'll select this vertice, and we'll hit Alt A and align that point to this dummy object. And I'm going to do the same thing to this one down here. Align this one to this dummy object, and then move it into the ghost. And then we'll rotate this up a little bit so it doesn't look like it's being bent too far out of the way. Alright, now to get the rope to follow this dummy object here, we're going to go ahead and skin the rope. So with it selected, we're going to add a skin modifier, and we're under the bones, we're going to go ahead and just add those two dummy objects. So dummy 1 and dummy 2. And if I scrub right away, you'll see that it's already working. Now the only problem is that the top dummy object is not moving, and the bottom one is kind of bending away from it. So what we'll do, we'll turn on auto key, and from our perspective view, we'll kind of see what's happening. So this is okay for now. We'll maybe move it to the left, and then we'll move it in. At this point, it's going to settle. Right? Maybe we'll move left a little bit, and then before it gets pulled off screen, we'll add a key. We want the rope to go first. And it looks like it's being pulled off the screen. Alright, so next we just need to animate some of the this point here on the end of the rope. this one right here. We'll go ahead and key this one. We'll move out a little bit. We'll turn on the show end result, and we'll just animate this accordingly. So this is okay. That's okay. And at this point, we actually want to animate it the other way. So we'll add a key, and then we'll bend it this way. Right. It's difficult to see unless we have the skin turned on. Oh, and we also want to reset our selection. It comes in, settles, and then the rope takes off and pulls the ghost with it. Alright, last but not least, we'll go ahead and add a black material to the line, turn off auto key. Alright, and we do a quick render for this. Alright, if we turn on my alpha channel, you'll see that the rope is not turned on, and that's just because in the parameters we didn't set it to be viewable in the render pass. So we'll click on the rope again, and under the line, we'll just turn on enable and render. Click back on skin, and give that another shot. And there you can see the alpha channel for the rope. Okay, so we're going to set up our render passes now, or our render pass. And actually, before we do that, we're going to go ahead and do a quick light setup. So we'll create 3 standard Omni lights. And we'll go into our top view to do this. So we want one on the left, one on the right, and one behind the object. Alright, so the one on the left, we'll go ahead and just turn this really up so we get a bit of a rim light. Right hand side, increase this down a little bit, maybe make this a little bit darker. And the one on the right, we'll keep that color. Increase it up a tiny bit and see what we get. Wrong angle. Okay, so we're getting a bit of a light cast over here from the darker one. You get light bouncing from the left. And I will go ahead and turn on shadows on this one on the right. Just in case the noise modifier gets a nice little bend deformation, we really want to capture that by turning on shadows. Turn on that one there. Again, wrong window. Okay, great. So now ready to go ahead and render this out. Okay, so we're going to add in our frame duration, which is going to be 0 to 120 frames. And then you're going to choose our output path, and then I'll be right back with this imported into After Effects. Okay, so I rendered the frames and brought them into After Effects. And turn on my alpha channel just so you can see the rope here. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is just go ahead and set up the background a little bit so we can better see what's happening in this scene. So we'll go ahead and create a new solid, and we're going to make this a little bit gray. Okay, put that behind our ghost. Alright, we're going to go ahead and add another solid. We'll make this one black. Hit OK. And then we're going to change our rectangle tool over to ellipse tool and double click on the ellipse. And this will give us a mask. We'll set this to subtract. Open up our mask panel. We'll feather this out a little bit. Adjust the expansion a little bit, and maybe the opacity. Alright, so the next thing that you saw in the scene was the smoke. So for the smoke I made another solid. Made this a bit lighter gray. And I started drawing out the wave of the smoke with the pen tool. We'll click on the bottom, or top, bottom, top again, and bottom, top, and bottom. And then we'll bring this back around on itself. Alright, but the smoke lasted for a little while, so we need to pre-compose this and make this a little bit longer. So we'll go to Composition, or Layer, Pre-Compose. We're going to move all attributes inside, and we'll call this Smoke. Alright, so in the Smoke layer, we're just going to triple the size of the width. So 1280, around 3000 is going to be enough for us. And I'm just going to duplicate this solid and move it over to the side. And just make sure it lines up nice. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. And again, make sure it lines up. And something like that should do it. So this will be the smoke element. So go back into our ghost composition, and we'll move the smoke over to the left. Open up and set a key. Delete that. Make sure I do this on the first key in the scene. Set a key, and on the very last key or frame, I'll set a key. Alright, and we're going to make another ghost or smoke element. And we're going to also do the position, but on this one we're just going to offset it a little bit. Same with the last frame, we'll make sure that that's offset. Maybe a little bit more too, so we get a bit of parallaxing. And we're going to do a quick color correction to this. So effect, color correction, levels. And we'll just make this one a little bit darker. Right. Close that panel up, make more room. Alright, we're going to add one more smoke element. And this one we'll put on top. We'll just flip this over, and you'll see that it's already doing the animation for us. Alright, another thing I did to add a little bit of depth is for every one of these smoke elements I went ahead and added a layer style drop shadow. So layer, layer styles, drop shadow. Alright, which one am I working on here? Okay, we're working on the top. So we'll increase our distance a little bit. Angle seems to be okay. And then we'll set the size up a little bit, kind of blur that out. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and copy that drop shadow. I'm going to paste it on the other two smoke layers. Alright, I'm also going to go ahead and paste that onto the ghost. I'm just hitting Control C and Control V. Control C to copy and Control V to paste. Alright. And we're just going to make sure that all the color is gone from the scene. So we're going to make a new adjustment layer. And in that adjustment layer, we're going to affect, color correction, hue, saturation. And we're just going to colorize and remove all saturation from this scene. This just make sure that all color is gone. Alright. Close that panel. And we'll make sure that the vignette is on top of all the elements. Okay, and we'll go ahead and just do a quick preview. Okay, so you can see in the preview here that the ghost is actually behind all the elements. Just to give this shot a little bit more depth, we'll actually move the ghost up in front of one of these. I think we want, let me just make sure, yeah. So he's kind of swinging into the two front ones here. Okay, so that is our final shot. I'll go ahead and give that a final render. Okay, here is our final product. I hope this tutorial helps you with your own production pipelines. I am a huge fan of the modifier stack in 3D Studio Max, and I will always pursue techniques with them before I use any sort of simulation. I encourage you to explore these and see what effects you can come up with. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter or subscribe to my channel on YouTube to get the latest news and updates on upcoming 3D Studio Max tutorials.